morning.
Stephanie, you are just a bright shining light on a Thursday morning. How are you?
I haven't had coffee yet, so I don't know how bright and shiny I'm going to be, but we're going to try.
Wait, you do anything before you have coffee?
Yeah, I'm doing intermittent fasting, so I don't drink or eat anything until 11 o'clock.
I do intermittent fasting with coffee, and then I do a little bit more coffee, and then more coffee, and then I'll eat something. Stephanie, it is fun that we get to talk because we were talking about dogs the other day, and I was trying to play frisbee with my dog, and it really just didn't work out. I just think I need a flatter dog.
Hey, something came up the other day that I was going to ask you about. Do you know what the difference is between a well-dressed man on a unicycle and a poorly dressed man on a bike?
No.
Attire. Okay. Welcome to How to Founder, where you can come for all your dad jokes. And I think that's why everybody tunes in most of the time.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Okay, Chris, what if the sales process you're so proud of is the very thing that's driving away your best prospects? That sounds not very good. Here's a stat that's going to make you rethink everything. According to Salesforce, 79% of business buyers say the salesperson's ability to be a trusted advisor is crucial in their buying decision. Yet most sales playbooks focus entirely on product features and closing techniques. John McKay spent months crafting the perfect sales presentation for Whole Foods' first major supplier meeting. When the day came, his laptop crashed 5 minutes before the pitch. Instead of panicking, he looked across the table and said, "Forget the slides. Want to know why your customers are stealing organic produce?" That unscripted conversation landed their biggest deal yet. So today on How to Founder, we're going to be talking about building your sales playbook. I'm Stephanie Hayes, and with me today is my mediocre co-host, Chris Franks. And
I'll take it. I'll take mediocre.
We have the pleasure today of talking to Drewbie Wilson. Drewbie is a sales powerhouse who has generated over $13 million in revenue by focusing on service over selling it. And I love this because this is something that I have said for years too, so I can't wait to get into it. He's transformed his life from 300 plus pounds to peak performance, applied the same discipline to sales, and now helps others build systems that actually convert prospects into customers. Drewbie, welcome. We are so excited to have you here today.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I can already tell this is going to be one heck of a show. And just based on the dad jokes, we're going to go way sideways. So I hope you guys are excited to be here with us.
We're up for it. We are into it. So let's dive right in. First question for you. Drewbie, most founders think they need a sales playbook to sound more professional, but you've seen what actually drives results. So why does having a sales playbook matter more than founders realize?
I think the biggest thing to a playbook is it's like microwave directions. You know, all of us have at one point or another burned a microwave meal. Like we put it in there and look back and like, how did we catch the whole thing on fire? But 99% of the time, if you just follow the directions, you end up with mostly what you're looking for. And I think the sales playbook is just that. It's your microwave directions for success for anyone on your team. And it's just a step-by-step of, hey, if you don't take the box off of the thing first, then you're going to be in big trouble. And I think sales is the same way. A lot of people go into sales, like you were mentioning, features, benefits, all the things that are really great about the company, and have zero interest in the actual individual that they're speaking to. And when you line it out correctly and you give the right steps in the right order, again, almost anyone off the street can pick it up and do the job. From there, it's just a matter of doing the work.
So I love this idea of the structure and the successful structure that we can put behind sales. Where's the balance between, I'm going in as a robot with a structure and a script versus, I know what the flow is going to be. And then, how do you get people to a point where they can be humans and be responsive and reactive during the sales conversation, but still be able to follow a playbook?
I heard a quote the other day that if you want to be interesting, you have to be interested. And so I think it really leans in on, from a playbook perspective, of give people the questions they're supposed to be asking so that the other person will talk. People love to talk about themselves. And if you just arm your individual with the right questions, then it's less about the script and more about the conversation. And I really think a lot of people forget that. They just go in with the, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to say this, as expecting that the other individual understands or is working themselves through the problem. Whereas when you just ask the right questions, they're in their own head working through the situation and realizing, like, oh, this is a problem. This is something we should be aware of. And if there's a solution to it, why wouldn't I want to pursue that solution?
Chris, you've been a founder. You've had multiple businesses. What did sales look like for you, and would it have been different if you had a playbook?
I mean, probably. I think the first thing is, I would say, is that there's sort of a myth that we founders have that sales is magic, like that you just go hire like this charismatic person that has the Rolodex, which is hilarious because only people our age actually know what a Rolodex is. Definitely, like I don't think like your actual Rolodex. No, we put cards on these things and roll to the. Yeah, nobody actually knows what it is anymore. But there's like it's almost it almost feels like voodoo for founders sometimes, because we say that founders need to do it, but when we do it, we never even write anything down. We don't have a process. And then we bring somebody in that's supposed to be terrific. It's a hugely important hire. I've gotten it wrong almost every time I've done it. And so it feels like, oh, we should have structure to this stuff. Like it almost feels like a foreign concept, because it just is one of those things. Like we could have operational discipline in every other part, but we get into the sales world, we just feel like we're kind of big messes. Has that been your experience, Drewbie, when working with founders? Like, is that kind of what you see?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing that I run into, especially working with founders, is that they have a decade of experience, right? They know their product, their service better than anyone else in the world. And then they expect the person that they hire to be able to walk in with a decade worth of experience. And there are some situations where you can hire someone from another company that has a similar product as yours. But ultimately, if you cannot share what you know to someone to the level that they can actually learn it and have the same amount of experience and wisdom as you have, it's a recipe for failure. And Chris, you said it yourself, like, I have failed hiring people the same way, because it's like, oh, I thought you understood that this is how sales works, right? You have to have empathy. You have to care about people. You have to be confident in the product or service that you're selling. And a lot of times founders, they came from a business where they were selling someone else's product or service, and they were really great at it. And then they decided, you know what, why am I letting them take 80-90% of the revenue? I'm going to go and get 80-90% of the revenue, and I'm going to give 10% to somebody else to go do this. But then they realize that they still have to show up and sell. And then they have to be the one to explain to the person that they hire how to go and sell that product or service. And I think people just forget that what is going on in your head is not what's going on in the next person's head. You can't expect yourself out of anyone else on the planet. And I think that's where a lot of founders fail, is they just expect someone to walk in the door, have all this experience, and be super awesome, to be able to take that charismatic personality and just go out there and crush it. And they fall flat on their face.
Okay, here's a contrarian opinion. In the world of business, especially in entrepreneurship, there's, the age-old, idea of a salesperson, which is, bright, shiny objects, jazz hands, the extrovert, right? In my experience, some of the best salespeople are introverts because they listen, right? They listen more. So am I wrong? Am I right? What's your take on that?
Yes and no. I think anyone can be successful in sales when they have the proper foundation to understand where their strengths and weaknesses are. An extrovert can be really great in a room. They can get attention, they can create relationships, and they can be super successful in sales just from the relationship standpoint. An introvert's not going to walk into a room of 50 people and go, I'm going to go and talk to all these people. They're going to be like, I'm going to sit over here in the corner and look cool and hope people come up and talk to me. But there's a book out there, and I forget the author, but we'll have to add it in. But it's called The Introvert's Edge. Because I like to think that I label myself as introverted, right? I kind of like to do my own thing. I kind of just run my own race. And also, I've had to learn to be extroverted because I can't just expect people to want to come up and talk to me. I have to be willing to step out of my comfort zone. And so I would say whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, it doesn't really matter so long as you're willing to get out of your comfort zone. And for an introvert, that's being able to listen and go out and have conversations. And for an extrovert, it's the willingness to shut up and let the other person speak for a little bit.
That's why I can't. That's why I have to be an extrovert. It's because I try to go look cool, and I don't. I just don't look cool, and so nobody comes talks to me, and then I get lonely, and then I have to go talk to people. So I train myself to be an extrovert. I'm highly introverted, Stephanie.
So what is a sales, like, what's the biggest misconception about a sales playbook? Like, let's say we have a founder who's sort of realized that this is something that's going to help them. How's it going to help them? And do they know how it's going to help them? Do they implement it correctly? Like, what are some of the big sort of gotchas when you have a playbook? It's not just a plug and play kind of solution, right?
I think the biggest misconception is that it can be vague. And I think that's where most people screw up is they're like, all right, well, yeah, you do this and then you do this and then you do this and then everything's hunky-dory. But the truth is, if you're not getting really granular in okay, you have to open this specific thing, and then you have to click on this piece, and then you have to go through this process specifically, and you have to do it in this order, or everything gets all out of whack. A lot of people in their playbooks, they're not being specific enough, which is what leaves so much room for error. Because again, if someone's coming in and they don't have a decade worth of experience like you do as a founder, they don't know all the nuances to the way that you do things. And it's that nuance that allows you to stand out from every other voice in the crowd. That's what makes you different than every other similar product provider, service provider, is your ability to truly get into the granular side that allows people to understand, like, oh, that's the thing, right? It's that little tiny piece, that one word, that one phrase that separates the person who's really successful with a playbook and the people who are like, well, we put all the things in place. How come you're not figuring this out? It's like, well, how can I figure it out if I'm missing 3 screws from the entire book? If I went to IKEA and they gave me all the parts except for those 3 screws, what's that thing going to look like? It's going to fall apart. It's those 3 little tiny screws that hold everything together.
So I've sold into tiny businesses. I've sold into enterprise. I have sold to individuals. I have sold to boards. And at the end of the day, I think that, one of the misconceptions that I've seen in sort of enterprise sales is that they think about selling to a business as opposed to a person, and there's always a person on the other end of the sales conversation, right?
Amen.
And the sort of the saying in sales is like you close when you make them feel something. I sort of think like even in big enterprise sales, there's still an individual there, and you have to make them feel something. So can you can you dive a little bit further into that? Because one of the things that you had mentioned was that people kind of screw up their sales process because they just focus on closing. So tell me a little bit more about, that sort of human side of sales.
People like to buy from people. They don't care about the logo. They don't necessarily care about the brand. They really just want to buy from an individual. And so like I always use Nike as an explanation. Like, why do people buy Nike shoes? Well, because they like Michael Jordan. It's not necessarily the logo or the shoe itself. It's they resonate with Michael Jordan. So they want to be like Jordan. That's why they buy his shoes. And when you're selling to a business, there's an individual that you're working with. And in that business, they are the key to everything, right? They're the one who's responsible for all the purchasing. They're the one that's responsible for the marketing department or the sales department. And if you can't get that individual on board with you because they truly feel like, hey, this person understands me, they understand the trouble that I'm going through, and ultimately I have to trust in the individual that they're choosing, or I could lose my job. And so I think that's where you have to separate and really go deep in building the relationship with the individual. Because if that individual trusts you, they like you, they will go and vouch for you to every other decision maker in an enterprise level. And that's where people mess up, is they're like, oh, well, the people are going to get this and this and this. And it's like, yeah, but how does that help me? Because if it doesn't do anything for me, then what's the point of this conversation? I'm the one who needs to be successful with this decision. And ultimately, if I can't see it, then why would I want to work with you?
Chris, you run a community of founders. you're well integrated into a community of founders. And I'm sort of wondering, like, I wonder if you were attracted to that because you had built a playbook that realized that a network of people is sort of part of your sales strategy. Is that right?
I mean, I think for building, Denver Founders and some of the other stuff that I've done is it was just like what Drewbie was saying, which is just building relationships, and building those relationships have helped me sell, and it's helped me find opportunities and, sit on silly podcasts with y'all. Like, it's just those relationships that kind of matter the most. Here's if it's okay, Stephanie, the question that I want to ask Drewbie is, like, I think that what we have, this misconception we have as founders, when I say that it's kind of like magic, is that these are just a set of skills that are all learnable. Right? Like, this is not something, yes, there are people that are going to be more naturally adept at asking the right question at the right time, maybe have a slightly higher EQ, but how can I, as a founder, start to invest in the skills, the component skills that are going to make me a great salesperson? And I know you say that a lot of the founders are good natural salespeople. Some of them are. Some of them are, particularly early stage founders. We need to go out and learn how to do that job. And it's genuinely the difference between success and failure in our companies. And so kind of break down those component parts, and how would you suggest to me that I learn those skills as an early stage founder?
I would say that there's kind of two different paths you can go down here. So one, 100%, you can go and invest in sales training. You can read every sales book. You can do all the things there, right? You could buy the courses. You could hire a mentor. Like, there's a lot of different ways you could go down that path. But one of the things that I really enjoy about being a founder is, if you look at Henry Ford, he didn't know how to build an engine. He didn't know how to create tires. Like, he went and his skill was finding the people who were great at that. So what I like to think is, if you're a founder and you're like, hey man, I'm not so great at sales, go and find the people who are great at sales to come in and be that extension of you. Because if you're spending all of your time, energy, and effort, which are the real finite resources, right? We can all make more money, but time, energy, and effort, you cannot get back. You can't win in a poker tournament. You don't get a box of it on Christmas. You can invest that time, energy, and effort into finding the right people, and the right people will do the job for you. So I think there's kind of this idea of like, oh, I have to do everything in my company because I'm the founder. And to an extent, there is some truth to that early on. You've got to figure out how to be able to promote your product. You've got to figure out how to be able to convince someone else that this is the solution to their problem. And also, at a certain level, if you're spending all your time working on your weaknesses, what are happening to your strengths? They're getting worse because you're not continuing to develop them. You're not focusing on them. And so, can you go and buy the course? Absolutely. Can you hire a sales training mentor? Absolutely. I think that's what a lot of people do early on. And also, I think there comes a point where you just have to realize, hey, is my time best spent doing this? Or would it be better spent to use some of these resources I have, this money, to go and hire the right person to do that? Now, again, there's a lot of nuances to that process, but I think it's a matter of, if you want to learn sales, then you're going to spend your time, energy, and effort learning sales. That's awesome. If you want to learn marketing, you're going to have to learn marketing. And that might mean hiring a marketing company so that you can watch what they do and just kind of follow the process, right? It's like a playbook. It's like, hey, if I didn't have a playbook on how to do sales, I'd probably go and look for somebody that's built a playbook on sales before, and I would just mimic it. There's another book that I really love, Steal Like an Artist. That's by Austin Kleon. And essentially what it says is, hey, there's nothing new in this world. There's no new ideas. There's no new like magical pills. It's just a reorganization or a rethought out strategy that someone else has already done. So if you want to figure it out, go and find the people that have already done it and just follow what they did.
So following what they did, sometimes is going to work for you, and then sometimes is going to actually put you almost backwards, right? So there are key concepts inside of selling and in your playbook that probably need to be there and probably are gonna help you. So can we dive in just a little bit, because you talked a little bit before about, am I selling features? Am I selling do I start with the customer? Like, where do I begin in that sales playbook?
I think, to me, when I'm building out a playbook, it starts with the avatar. Who am I speaking to and why? Because if I'm trying to sell ice to an Eskimo, they're probably going to look at me and be like, man, I got more ice than I know what to do with. But if I'm selling them fire starters that start in any weather, well, then of course they actually have a need for that. So I think it really starts with, who is the customer avatar? Why are they buying our product and service? What's the thing that what's the benefit for them to even want to have a conversation with me? Because if I know the individual, I know what they're struggling with, I know what their desires are, or I know what their pain points are. Because people really buy for two reasons. They're trying to get out of the pain that they're in, or they're trying to step into the pleasure that they desire. There's really no middle ground. You want one or the other. Sometimes it's a little combination of both, but like realistically, one main thing is keeping them up at night. So I want to dive in on the avatar first. Once I have the avatar, then it's just a matter of understanding, all right, what questions am I prompting them with to get them talking? Because if I can get them talking, they're going to tell me all the things that I need to know in order to get them where they're trying to go. Because everyone's at a different stage in their journey. So if I'm asking the right questions, and then I'm listening to what the heck they're saying, then all I have to really do from there is just lay out a simple plan for success. So it really starts with, who am I speaking to? What questions am I going to ask them? Once they've told me everything that I need to know from a data perspective of, A, is this someone that I can help? And B, is this someone that I actually want to work with? Because not all business is good business. And I think a lot of founders will just go out there and they'll take whatever they can get right from the rip because they just want to make money. But they end up spending more time chasing their tail or working with the wrong people instead of having a very clear structure of, this is who we help. This is how we help them. This is what we do to help them. And this is the expectation they can realistically look at when they come to do business with us.
I wish you would have come and talked to like Chris from 20 years ago on that just last statement. Like, would have saved me. I probably would still have hair, Drewbie. Like I would, it would, maybe not. But I'd certainly have better mental health if I just be like, no, I don't want to work with that person. The guy's a jerk.
I think that's one of the most, I think it's one of the most undersold strategies in sales is let them talk first. Let them talk until they can't talk anymore, because they're going to tell you everything that you need to know to be able to structure, a positive and successful sales conversation. But, kind of last question. Let's talk about objections, because part of a playbook is enabling you to handle objections. And this is one of the things that business owners struggle with so much. They're like, what do I do when someone says no? This is one of the, the thinking exercises that I think can benefit sales as the most. So how do we build objection handling? What do we do when that prospect is, changing their mind at 2 a.m?
So in my opinion, there's only 3 objections that exist. The price isn't right, the timing isn't right, or they need to speak to someone to make that decision / think about it. And so in the way I build playbooks is I always look at those 3 first. Now, in every industry, there could be some nuances and some little sidebars, but for the most part, it always comes back to the price isn't right, which means that you haven't shown the value of your product or service to be far higher than the investment that individual is going to make into working with you. And timing, let's be honest, like some people may really want to work with you, but they legitimately have some sort of logistical situation where they have to wait until X date to either have the money in place to be able to actually take action on the thing that they're going to buy from you, right? You might want to sell your product or service to a distributor, and the distributor's like, yeah, 100% I want to buy this. However, in order for me to have warehouse space, I've got to get XYZ off the shelf so that I can put yours on there. And having a way to flow through those questions is really about circling back to narrowing in on what is the main objection. What is the biggest thing that's preventing them from moving forward? speaking to a spouse, business partner, decision maker, that's something that should be handled early on in the conversation. Hey, if everything looks great in this conversation and this is 100% the thing that you think is going to fix your problem, is there anyone else that needs to be involved in this conversation to make a decision? That's an easy question that you can ask at the start of the conversation. And if they're being honest with you, they're going to say, nah, man, as long as it looks good, we can move forward. Because then when you get to the end of the conversation and they're like, oh, well, I have to speak to so-and-so. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Because earlier on, I just want to confirm, you told me that if everything looked good and this was 100% the thing that you wanted to do or knew could help you, there wasn't anyone else that needed to be involved. So this person that you are saying now needs to be involved, what's the thing that they're going to see as the biggest roadblock to moving forward? Is it going to be the price or is it going to be the timing? Because ultimately they're using that as a smokescreen to be able to get away from actually making the decision. So you kind of have to reframe it in their mind to be like, well, no, you have the power. They trusted you. You probably spoke with them before you even had this call with me. So what is the big thing that's keeping you guys from moving forward? What is it that they're going to need to see, hear, feel about this whole situation in order to want to take it to the next step? And then, again, pricing is pricing. Hey, the number is the number. So is it that you just literally can't afford it? Because if so, what if we can offer some financing options? What if we can show you some different ways to move forward that aren't going to break the bank right now and also set it up for success in the big picture? If we can make it work, do you want to proceed with this? And so I think when you look at those three objections, you really just start leaning back in on, if the price doesn't sound right, what questions are we asking to figure out what the logistical thing is behind it? If the timing isn't right, what are the questions or conversations that we're going to have to understand the logistics and the timing of this situation? And again, if they need to think about it, one of two things has happened. They're using that as a smokescreen because they just want to get off of the call, or you've given them too much information and now they're literally more confused than when they started the conversation to begin with. So you kind of got to circle back, isolate the main thing that they're trying to figure out, and then continue working through there so that you can get them back on track to getting your final answer.
I wish you hadn't said all of that, because I use all those objections when I'm talking to Chris, and now he knows how to.
I was literally going down the list. Like, hey, yeah. Stephanie, do you want it? I got to think about it.
Yeah. I have to ask my husband. I'm not even married.
Right.
Now I can't use that anymore.
Yeah. Thank you, Drewbie. You've demystified the process for us.
Chris, anything else that's kind of standing out for you before we move into the speed round?
I think that the piece that you just said, Drewbie, is I learned this early in my sales career, the difference between a stall and an objection. And objections are great. Objections are a conversation because you're getting to real stuff. Stalls are terrible. I got to think about it. I need to talk to somebody. I need to bring somebody else into the conversation in the B2B setting. And then just that idea of understanding the difference between the two. Stalls, objections, you can have a conversation around. They're terrific. Stalls, you can't. Stalls, you have to work through. Stalls is something where you haven't gotten them feeling like this is the right decision.
It's emotional.
Yeah, it's emotional. And so, classically, we were taught, if you say, well, I have to talk to my wife, like, oh, that's them giving you a sign that there is an objection or something underneath it, or you've we used to call show up and throw up, Drewbie, like, giving them all the information without actually asking a question, and there's something underneath there, but you haven't gotten to it. And so when I got a stall, it was always like, I missed somewhere along the way. I missed, but I got to work my way through it to find that objection underneath it. I thought it was it's a smart thing. So yeah, that's my 2 cents today, Stephanie. Maybe it's a cent. I don't know. Maybe it's a Canadian cent.
It's a Canadian.
Chris, I think the secret to that, though, to work through the stall, is to just ask them, all right, cool. Well, hey, I totally respect that. I have a wife too. I don't want to sleep in the doghouse myself, so I certainly don't want to send you there. So when you go back to speak to your wife, what specifically about this whole situation is she going to be most worried about? Is it the investment? Is it the timing? Is it something where she's just not going to understand what the heck is going on here? Because if we can help educate you on how to have that conversation with her. Because if you know this is the right thing, I certainly want you guys to move forward. So how do we isolate the one thing for her that's going to be the roadblock so that I can arm you with everything you need? A lot of times they're going to tell you what that true objection is, and then you just start working through it just like you would any other objection. But you have to get them to feel confident telling you what the heck that thing is, so that it's not stalling. It's literally them voicing it out in their own head going, oh, well, she's going to be worried about the price. It's like, okay, well, cool. What about the price is she going to be concerned about? Well, we don't want to spend everything in our bank account. Totally respect that. I wouldn't want to spend everything in my bank account necessarily unless I knew 100% for sure this was the solution. So like, are you 100% sure this is the solution for you? If yes, then okay, cool. Why do you think she's not going to be convinced? And you just keep rolling through, but you got to isolate and get them to feel comfortable explaining what's going on so that you can really get to the solution for everybody.
What that was when I learned, we called it questioning down. I don't know what you call it, but the idea there is of the three possible objections. Do we have the right product? Is the right timing? 80+% of the time, 90+% of the time, it's a price value objection, which means you haven't stacked enough value. And so just asking the question, well, do we have the right product? Is this going to be the right fit? Timing right? Is everything okay? Cool. How do you feel about the price? And just ask that question and shut up. Like that was a superpower. That was one of those superpower questions. Like I learned that question and that was like, just kind of blew my mind because almost always it's a price value objection.
It's crazy how simple it gets when you break it down.
Yeah. A money objection is usually not about money. And when I tell that to my folks who I'm mentoring, they're kind of like, what? And the truth is that if money was an issue, truly an issue, they probably wouldn't even be talking to you, right? Like I'm not going to go and engage with someone for a service, say, that when I know I just don't have the money, right?
I'm not walking into a Ferrari dealership. I'm not walking in.
Right.
Yeah, Toyota dealership I walk into. But
I drive a Toyota.
Right.
All right. Okay. Great conversation. And we could probably talk about sales for another hour, which we will very soon. But we're going to go into speed round. And maybe you want another shot of espresso before we do this. But this is just, the quick gut check. Don't overthink these. But let's dive in. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right. Okay. I'm going to play. It's very dramatic.
You're so much better at that than I am. Well done.
Okay. Okay. Drewbie, scripted responses or authentic conversations? Which builds more trust?
Authentic conversations all day.
Okay. High ticket consultative selling or volume-based transactional? Which scales better?
I'm going to go high ticket just because that's where I'm leaning right now. But I honestly think either one can be successful.
Okay. Leading with price or leading with value? Which qualifies prospects faster?
Value all day.
Okay. Follow-up sequences or one-shot closes? Which converts higher intent leads?
Follow-up sequences.
Product-focused demos or problem-focused discovery? Which shortens the sales cycles?
Problem discovery.
All right. Okay, Chris, what have you taken away from today's conversation?
So much, Drewbie. Thank you for joining us. I mean, it was really good. I'm sorry you have to go talk to Stephanie for another 45 minutes or an hour. But document your sales process, even if it's out. I think I just said process, Stephanie, from just hanging out with you. Process. There you go. Now I'm back to my voice. Document your sales process. Script good questions. That was kind of thing I always like, scripting the good questions. Very smart. People buy from people. If you're not a great salesperson as a founder, it's okay. Go hire that person. Find the right person. People buy for pain and pleasure. Start with who, and then ask why. You say avatar, I say persona, but the same thing. Ask questions and then shut up, something I'm terrible at doing. And then understanding the difference between an objection and a stall. Objections are conversations. Stalls, you have to work your way through by asking good questions. I learned a ton. Thank you so much for joining us, Drewbie.
Awesome. So deep dive. These are some of the resources we got from Drewbie and from some of our own experience. The Challenger Sale by Matthew Dixon. Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. Gap Selling by Keenan. The Sales Acceleration Formula by Mark Roberge. There's an article called The Science of Sales Conversations by Harvard Business Review. And go listen to the podcast, The Sales Evangelist by Donald Kelly. All good resources. We'll have those in the show notes. Drewbie, where can we learn more about you? Where can people find you?
The number one thing that they can do to find me is take this specific episode and share it on social media and then tag at Call the Damn Leads. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, doesn't matter what platform you're on. If you tag this, that's going to do two things. One, it's going to tell me and Stephanie and Chris that you actually got some value out of this conversation, because people don't share things unless they're really, really cool. So if you do that, that will tell us that our time, energy, and effort was well spent here today. Once you've shared it, go check out callthedamnleads.com. I mean, we're pretty well congruently branded on everything and anywhere, because my goal is that by the year 2030, our logo is on a hat, t-shirt, wristband, keychain in every airport across the country, because there's enough founders and sales professionals out there in the world to make this an actual reality. So if you visit callthedamnleads.com, grab a hat, keychain, grab one of my books, whatever, doesn't matter. That is our movement. And ultimately, when you tag us on social media, I wouldn't be good at sales if I didn't follow up with you. So you will 100% hear from me, because I want to know what the real thing you got out of this episode was.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening. Please be sure to visit howtofounder.com, where we can connect, or you can connect with us on LinkedIn and subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the platforms. You are the pioneer of economic prosperity. We are so grateful for being there with you along the way. All right. Have an amazing day, you guys. We will see you next episode.